then, then what comes next? And maybe if a deal comes along, you can't do that deal. And so trying to, the merits of kind of maybe going through, this is the pros, the cons, right? If you kind of just, break it down basically. But I sat there in a meeting with a think tank that halfway through and just listening to everything, I walked out and made the call and said, okay, we're making the trade, because it just was so obvious. And so, tapping into experience, that's something I don't have. I have experience in terms of, like I said, being a part of it. And as you mentioned, there's not a thing that I wasn't already involved in, but just kind of, pulling the trigger, planning, how do we position ourselves going forward? You just think differently. And at the end of the day, I want to make the head coach really happy.
Well, and we all know, even in life, the hardest decisions are, okay, how much do I emphasize what I want right now? How much do I emphasize what I want 5, 10, 20 years, whatever? You're the coach of a team that wants to win another title right now. Is it hard to look much past that as a general manager?
No, I think it's just more reality. And I think that oftentimes we hear, well, what about these young players? Play these young players, because Lindsay and Simone and Rebecca and the whole crew, they're not going to play forever, and you got to get these young players ready. And my simple answer to that is not these young players that are going to be taking over to help us win championships. It's simply not. You're not going to build through the draft at the bottom of the draft.
Right.
And that's the simple reality, in that, when these players retire, short of making acquisitions to fill their role, which, if you look at Danielle Robinson, we were really, really pleased at the quality of Danielle's career to be able to acquire her, which, by the way, we wouldn't have been able to do had we signed Natasha Howard to her free agency deal that I struggled with whether we should or shouldn't do. At the end of the day, it's, we have to take chances in trying to acquire higher draft picks. We might have to overpay in some situations to get done what we want to get done. And so one of the things that we focused on this offseason was acquiring assets for the future. We were swapping with Seattle next year. We went through and we looked at our league and we said, okay, 12 teams. Who's making the playoffs? Who's not? And we can't come up with a clear-cut answer of who's not. And so this league is that good that you go, hey, if this happens to this team or this, you could see their season in an instant, turning. And so, we said, we hope it's not our draft pick. We have a right to swap with Seattle. We hope it's not our pick that's going to be the higher pick. We hope maybe that it's Seattle's. That's a way of maybe moving up a few spots in the draft if you can. That's worth a chance of taking. And same thing in us trading our 17th and 24th pick this year in the second round, that we said, let's try to kind of parlay those picks into something better next year, maybe perhaps in the early part of the second round with a Las Vegas team that is young and just not quite ready to compete for a championship. So, you just try to play the odds. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So right now we're positioned where we have 4 draft picks in 2 rounds next year in what's considered to be another a pretty decent draft. So that's the mindset. We are thinking about the future for sure. But it's a fine line because, we want to maximize the potential of the group that we have now. And so we are trying to balance that, but I would say that the balance tips a little bit more in favor of trying to get a 5th title for this group.
Is there any way Lindsay has more than 1 year left in her under these circumstances?
In my opinion, yeah. Now, I haven't talked to Mark about this piece, and he and I never talked about, other than I said to him, look, I want to talk about Lindsay Whalen, but only if Lindsay Whalen is still my point guard of the Minnesota Lynx. Otherwise, it's a different conversation. But, I think that from my perspective, I could certainly see, Lindsay playing beyond a season, but I've felt that way, for a long time with Lindsay. And Lindsay got to a certain point a few years ago, where she said, I just want to take it 1 year at a time. Anything more than that, I think, maybe caused her, anxiety, that sort of thing, and didn't want to leave us high and dry if she was on a 3-year and then wanted to end after a year. So it just worked for both of us that let's just go at a year at a time. If you're still having fun and you feel healthy and we still like it, let's keep doing it. Now, obviously you throw into this scenario, a head coach of a big time program, how do you balance that? I saw Dawn Staley do it for 4 seasons as the head coach of Temple University. Took that program from kind of, struggling a little bit to an NCAA tournament team. I watched how hard she worked. I watched her prepare herself to be an elite point guard for our team, and then also go, put her staff together and worked her tail off and was on the phone and traveled when she could in recruiting, and she did both. Some people, are able to do those things and multitask, and I'm hoping that Lindsay is that. And, I told her, I said, it's quite an advantage to say, hey, Paige, hang on a second, or let me call you back. I got to do an interview with ESPN. I'm going to be on national TV tonight. Or we're in the playoffs, and hey, I'll call you after the game tonight. But you can tune in and watch me. And the number of times that University of Minnesota is going to be said in those broadcasts, and really throughout the summer. So there's just real value in her participation in the WNBA. So we'll see how long her body holds up.
We'll wrap up episode 1 of the Cheryl Reeve Show with some Twitter questions. But first, let's just give people a taste of what we want to do with the show, because I think this is a really exciting show. I'm not expressing myself well, which is bad because I'm in the express myself business. I'm excited about doing this show because I think we can go in a lot of different directions here. I think we can talk current events. We can talk about women's basketball. We can talk about women's sports. But I think we can also talk about a lot of deeper stuff. And, whether it's social justice, whether it's the role of sports in our society, I think we can do a lot of cool things. And we haven't really prepped this, so I'll just give you the floor to say what you would like to do with the show.
Well, I was so flattered, Jim, when you and your team, approached me about this. And, I've spent quite a bit of time this off season tackling a number of issues. And I'm just at the point now where I just want to have more dialogue about what's happening, so obviously being able to talk about the great game, of the WNBA or, whatever current events, like you said, in the sporting world, it would be great to talk about Vikings when it comes time and, share whatever insight. And then it's also, whatever's happening in the world, with regard to, for me, particularly women, to just kind of take a deeper dive into, more than anything for me, the kind of the mindset that I think that many of us carry, that we don't realize sometimes the power of our words, the power of our actions, or maybe even sometimes, which I get a lot, is, geez, Coach, I didn't think of it that way. Now that you say that, you're right. I do those things. And so, for me, it's not about anti-men. This is really more about men and women, and making sure that women are always a part of the conversation and treated equally. Not, we covered the women once last month. What else do you want? Sort of a mindset. And so that's what I'm after. And I just think that, when we talk about the world as a better place, when we do that, and some people think that's a very ideologic view and, political, so to speak, and you can put whatever label you want on it. It's what I believe in. It's what I'm passionate about.
Good. That's perfect. I couldn't have said it better. That's why I let you say it. Let's do a few Twitter questions. And we will do Twitter questions on occasion whenever it seems to be the right thing to do, and let you join in the conversation. And also, hey, use social media to spread the word about this show. I think it's going to be a big success. From David Anderson, you've kind of answered this, but he asks, what advice have you or will you give to Lindsay? Is there one piece of advice you haven't talked about yet that you've given her? Yeah,
I would say the biggest thing, David, that I share with Lindsay is the most important thing any coach can do is be yourself. That, yes, you have a support system around you. Yes, there's some great coaches that she can draw on. But at the end of the day, she's got to carve out her identity, and who she wants to be, and not try to be like anybody. That was the best advice I got as a young coach. And I think the second thing, if you drill down a step further, is the greatest thing that was said to me, in a clinic setting from Don Meyer. It's not what you teach, it's what you emphasize. And I had to think about it over and over again. And then until you're a head coach, you don't really understand that. And so those two things, being yourself and, the emphasized piece is really your identity. And, I think those are probably, two big things. Obviously, the list is very long. Yeah. It's funny you brought up the saying, because I've always used that saying. I didn't realize it was from Don Meyer.
But I've always said that. And I used to say that when I coached youth sports. It's like, yeah, everybody wants to be good on offense and on defense. And everybody wants to be good at everything, but you're going to be good at what you really push.
That's exactly right. And the players know.
Yeah.
They know what you care about. And like you said, it can't necessarily be everything. But look at your personnel set, look at who you are, sort of thing. What do you believe in? Because whatever you're passionate about, that's going to come through to your players.
You can subscribe on iTunes. You can go to our website, talknorth.com. You subscribe at your favorite podcast app. There are a lot of ways to listen to it. I just put Talk North on my phone. The great thing about this medium is it's very easy. It's on your schedule. You can listen anywhere, anyhow you like. Let's wrap up the show with a kind of another current events question. The Las Vegas Golden Knights are a huge success in Vegas, and they're a good team, but I think they were a success even before they proved they were a good team. The Raiders are moving to Vegas. I think they're already a hit there, from my experiences in being in Vegas a couple of times. How do you think women's basketball is going to do there?
Well, I think because, number one, that MGM, who owns the team, who owns half of Las Vegas,
yes,
wants to see this thing be wildly successful. And so I think when you have an ownership group who is passionate about it and has sought out Bill Lambier and said, hey, we want you to start this, and basically has said, anything you need, let us know, and has kind of basically let him kind of run with it. When an ownership group is passionate about it and is committed to it versus just being semi-interested, then it'll be hard to see that franchise not be successful at some point. Players are going to be a big part of that. They've had a couple number one picks a couple years in a row. Being bad in the right years is important. I think as we saw, to be able to land Maya Moore, back in 2010. So I would be surprised if the community, because again, I think ultimately, the WNBA is maybe a bit of a training ground for the NBA.
Right.
Doors are opening, for the Las Vegas community. And so I think as a result of that, they're going to want to come out and support it and show how much they love pro sports.
Thanks to Cheryl. Thank you for listening to the first Cheryl Reeve Show. We'll be back with much more. We're going to try to do the show pretty much on a weekly basis. We'll flip our schedule around depending on Cheryl's time restraints, but we'll be producing good stuff for you on a constant basis. Again, check it out at talknorth.com. Email me if you'd like to advertise with the show, and you can, again, always subscribe at iTunes, your favorite podcast app. Do you have a final thought for us?
I'm just excited to be able to do this. I was told by my family long ago that one thing I'm good for is always having an opinion.